So a big welcome to everyone tonight, and welcome to Masters of the Fly. As I think you all know by now, we started Masters of the Fly at the beginning of the pandemic as a way to stay connected as a fly fishing community, and we've been super grateful for the response from everybody. We have, as I said, over 270 attendees tonight between Zoom and Facebook Live. We'll be recording this for YouTube on YouTube, so you can come back and watch it later and share the link with your friends. We are committed to really keeping these sessions going as long as there's interest, long hopefully past COVID is gone. And these sessions are free. Tom and Clay will put the slide up with our future events. Actually, Tom and Clay, maybe you can put that up now. There we go. And the registration link, we'll put that in the chat box as well, so you can make sure you attend the remaining sessions this season. The one thing we'd ask is that you please follow us on social media. We're at Masters of the Fly on Instagram, and we have a Masters of the Fly Facebook group. And then also please like and subscribe our channel on YouTube. It really helps us get the word out and attract the great guests that we're able to get for these events. And then also, really, for fun, just be sure to tag your Popovics and King-inspired fly ties on Instagram with hashtag Masters of the Fly, and we'll be sure to repost them on our Instagram and share them with Bob and with Jonny. So, speaking of great guests, we're so thrilled that you're here tonight for a really special event with two true fly tying legends, Bob Popovics and Jonny King. And before I turn things over to my good friend Captain David Blinken, just a reminder to comment and interact with each other in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and also put questions for Bob and Jonny in the Q&A box, which you can access again at the icon, with the icon at the bottom of the screen. And we'll be tracking that through the evening as those questions come up, and we'll leave time for Bob and Jonny to answer them. And with that, here's David.
Hey, thanks, Lou. Guys, welcome. Listen, I want to give a quick shout out to the ASGA. Thanks. And last week's show was great. And for those of you who didn't see it, you really owe it to yourself to see it. There's a lot going on with striped bass and what's moving and how we're moving forward into the future with it. Peter Jenkins at Saltwater Edge, thank you so very much. John Papsiak and everybody else who helped promote it, thanks very much. To our board, thank you very much. Tail, to you, and Dunn Magazine, thank you guys very much. You're big supporters. Last but not least, we posted it, but starting on February 27th, we have Chris Wood from Trout Unlimited. He's going to be talking. March 6th, we have Jason Taylor. That should be another disciple of Bob's. March 20th, Women Leaders in Fly Fishing. I'm really excited about that. April 3rd, James Prosek, artist and angler extraordinaire. And on May 1st, we have a guides roundtable. And that should be a really fascinating talk. A bunch of guides here in the Northeast who are all getting together to talk about seasons past and what we see in the future. So without further ado, shortly after coming home from Vietnam, Bob Popovics, that is, was introduced to fly fishing and fly tying. And from a controversial beginning, Bob has innovated his way into our collective hearts. I've had the pleasure of meeting Bob many years ago in North Carolina, and since then, on and off, we've kept in touch. As Lefty Kreh once said, and I'm paraphrasing, Bob is the greatest fly tyer of any generation. I would agree. Bob is one of the most generous and genuine people personally that I've ever gotten to meet, and it's a pleasure knowing him. I've known Jonny King for over 25 years, and he was one of Masters of the Fly's first guests in our first season, and it was a great show. Jonny's an innovative fly tyer in his own right, and he's influenced by Bob. It's my sincere pleasure to introduce the legendary Bob Popovics as tonight's guest, and Jonny King is one of our guest panelists. So for Masters of the Fly. So without further ado, I'm turning the reins over to our moderator extraordinaire, Erik Schatzker. And Erik, take it away.
David, thank you. Luyan, thank you. Folks, like the rest of you, I have been looking forward to this evening with such anticipation. Bob and Jonny, it's great to have you here.
It's
You
good
doing,
to
Erik?
be here, man. I'm so happy to finally get through.
Yeah, we got the technical wrinkles
Yes.
ironed out, and here we go. Just so that everybody knows, it's not a fly tying demo, but there's going to be plenty of show and tell. As you can see, Bob is in a very salty locale, and Jonny has some tricks up his sleeve. So Bob, I'd like to begin with you with a simple question, really, which is, how did Bob Popovics, a young man just returned from Vietnam, the Vietnam War, I should be clear, and who'd never held a fly rod in his hands, become what the great Lefty Kreh called the most innovative fly tyer he'd ever known? Tell us your story.
Well, that's a great question. There's a lot to it, obviously, and try to condense it might not be so easy. However, when I came back from Vietnam, I would always fish as a kid. I loved to fish. And I was working at my father's restaurant. And
Which
buddy,
down the Jersey Shore, right?
yes, sir, in Bayville, New Jersey, Shady Rest Restaurant. Well, then it was pizza parlor then. Now it's a restaurant. So anyhow, so I'm working. A friend of mine comes by with another friend just to stop and see me after I come back. And just so happened that I was getting off a little bit earlier that day, and there was some fish to be had not far that we could access through my father's boat. So they said they don't have that big of a workload that day, and they came back. And sure enough, we went out and we started to catch weak fish off the shoreline on Jersey Shore, off Long Beach Island. And we were using diamond jigs, so we're fishing conventional tackle, fishing the bottom, and we were doing very well. But my father had a 20-foot little cabin, Grady White. And all of a sudden, as we were fishing, having a good time, here comes a school of bluefish working the surface, coming right towards the boat. Well, they start scurrying and scurrying. You know, we're all kind of excited, but I'm just content to stay down with them weak fish. And they go into the cabin, they start pulling these tubes out that have rods in them. And I see this thick white line. I said, what in the world? What are you guys doing? They said, well, we're going to try to fly fish for them on the surface. I said, oh, wow, no shit. I said, that's what I want to do. I said, I always wanted to do that. He said, well, we'll teach you, but you ain't learning now, because they were concentrating on trying to get those fish, which they didn't get. So anyhow, make a long story short, took me back, and one of the guys that was with my friend Jimmy McGee, who I graduated high school with here, his friend was Butch Colvin. Now, his father was Capt Colvin, a very, very influential fly fisherman in this area, throughout the whole country, actually. And he had a tackle store, which is right from where I sit now. It's less than a block away still. But now it's his granddaughter's. She has a delicatessen, 3 C's delicatessen. However, we go, they said, well, listen, tomorrow we'll bring you over there. We'll get you a rod, a reel, and we'll get you all set up. And, okay, let's see. Well, sure enough, they came. I went over there. I got my rod, my reel, my fly line, and I got my first casting lesson right here in Central Avenue in Seaside Park, where I live still to this day. It was phenomenal. I couldn't believe it. And as time would go by, I didn't tie flies yet. Took about a year, and then because I would grub them from my buddies, and just like everybody else, oh yeah, I'll take, yeah. Thank God they gave me flies to use. But then one thing that Butch also taught me, he was a big hockey player, and he loved the sport. I liked the sport, but I could never follow it. And he says, come on, I'll show you how to do it. Come on. Well, it just so happened it was my birthday, November 17th. And that would be maybe 1970. It was 1970. So that's my first year, 1970. He comes over, and what seemed strange, he knocks on the door where normally he could just walk right in. And I go to the door, and there he stands with a flat, cardboard flat that you would put a case of beer in 6 packs. And there's a vise, bucktail, an old red plastic bobbin and scissors and stuff. And I knew what it was for, but I had yet never tied a fly. And he says, I said, come on, Butch. I said, I can't, these hands, they'll never work. He says, you're going to learn between the periods. So we're watching the Rangers and Boston Bruins. Never forget it. And I sit there, and then finally, just like he said, I had a table, and the dining room table, sat there, and I could still remember, the hook is now in the vise, and I'm trying to get the thread up there and trying to get the thread to catch, to overlap and lock in. And I couldn't do it. Because my left hand was moving with my right. I'm doing this, and I would never, this had to stay. I had to keep the tension and finally cross over and catch it. And when I felt that solid tension, there was something about it. And I just got into it so hard. And that was my passion through my early times back from Vietnam. So that got me started.
You learned how to tie flies during the intermission of a Rangers Bruins game.
Yes, sir. And I absolutely love it. I can still remember it. I can still remember that sensation of locking the thread. And I just felt so that this is really something. I might be able to do it. But then on the other hand, the problem was there was not very many in Seaside Park. There were no fly shops, nothing. That was, God knows, they were all up in New England or in a big city, maybe somewhere. So getting material, and good quality material, was very difficult to find. I would get little packages from the Universal Vice. They had a stand in this boat store. Thank God they had a revolving stand that would have material on it. And they would give 5 feathers, webby little feathers, no more than like 4 inches, 3 inches long, and try to make deceivers. And well, we didn't do deceivers yet, but tarpon tamers, and try to splay saddles and stuff. It was very difficult. But what I would do my best, but then I would lay them down after I made a mass of them. I would lay them on the floor, and I would look at them, and I'm thinking, these are like little army guys when I was a little boy. You lay them all up and you set them up. But I'm looking at them, not realizing that what I'm actually doing is criticizing those that I didn't like and appreciating ones that look maybe a little bit better, a little bit more. And then that just, I don't know what's going on yet, but it's like, yeah, this is drawing me in closer and closer. So then I finally later on, I got a little better material. The guys started really liking my flies and stuff. And so at least the quality was better, and I could see that I could do well. But then there were things that were coming up that didn't seem to make sense. In other words, this is for Blinken here. This is the earliest surf candy, I would say, that I have left. This is years after the original one. You can see it's how colored the epoxy is. It's 5-minute epoxy, but they used to be blondes, Joe Brooks blondes. And then I would notice that the head, I would epoxy the head. The rest of it would be no epoxy like this has. And Bluefish would chew it up, and the fly would be useless. And I said, what if I looked over here at the head was fine. So I said, what if I took that epoxy and just, instead of stopping at the threads, just keep going and going. Well, you can see just what actually must have, this is what happened. The fly, this part was fine, okay? This is fine, but this got chewed up because it's exposed to the teeth. Then one thing led to another. It was working. They were really more crude than this. This would be beautiful back then. They were real crude, but see, then I started to think I would be problem solving. And then once I did that, one thing led, okay, there was the surf candy. And then I got that down where I liked it. Guys laughed at it, all kinds of stuff. And what do you need that for? Well, I'm catching bluefish one after the other, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 bluefish on one fly, where they're done with 1 or 2. Then the other problem that we had was all the guys with conventional tackle were getting big bass. Fly guys weren't getting anything more than like 17, 18 inches, 25 inches would be big, 28 was huge. And then they were live lining bunker and herring. on the jetties and on the beaches, and they were very successful. Well, our flies were very small. So then I said, well, what a fly guy needs, he needs a big bunker, a fly. So what I did, this one here, this is the original one. This is the one I try to let you really see. I have it in my book. There's 3 sections. One is here. There's monofilament here. There's monofilament on the silver stripe, and there's monofilament here. All this bucktail, I would take it, monofilament, long strands of mono, solid mono, and I would put in between 2 vices. And then I would spin my bobbin on there, and I would be able to attach the bucktail to it in series, as you can see it here. Okay, it's all tied in series. Kind of crude now. It's just, you got to realize this is 50 years old now.
Hey, Bob, I got to ask you something. So,
Yes.
Because there are going to be some people on here who are going to be tying beast flies, right?
Yes.
Which is the modern evolution of that. When you were tying bucktail, I mean, I've seen you tie it on mono, but were you tying it separately, a segment on the top, a segment on the bottom, or were you starting to do actual collars 360? Because you have different color, top and bottom.
Oh, no, this here, you see there's 3 sections. There's mono here, mono on the silver, and mono on the top.
Right,
So
you
this is
weren't-
just,
You weren't doing the 360 collars yet.
no, this is all in series. Okay, and then I had to tie, you see, I tied it back here. You see it, you can see the thread there, right? And then I brought it all up behind the bend of the hook, tied it on there, and then I was so tired, I just took chenille and some glass eyes and finished it with a flare of bucktail at the front, and I went to bed. And that was my attempt. In other words, again, problem solving. I'm going for big bucktail, big bunker type fly, which we couldn't have. Nobody had anything like that. Okay. And so one thing that's all through all the creating of different patterns and flies or techniques or whatever I did, all pretty much come out of a problem solving. To answer your question, I know it's a long way around there, but it's not a simple question.
No, that's helpful.
You know, so I don't mean to ramble on so much, but you asked, you get it. So.
Bob, the
great.
thing
All
I
right.
wonder is that you're hardly the first person to develop new patterns. Many, innovative fly tyers before you, obviously, but you took, I think it's fair to say that you took creativity to another level. And what, was there anything in particular that prompted you to experiment, as you've described now, with materials and tying techniques that no one had either mastered or perhaps even tried before?
No, I never sought out just to make something different. Never. If I try, well, I shouldn't say never. I did try. Oh, I like to I could put my name on a fly if I could do something different. Doesn't make any sense. Nothing comes from that. It's not until I needed to solve a problem was I able to create something. That was.
In other words, it wasn't by accident.
No,
it was very
Listen, you know what we need is this or that. Now to go all these years forward, when you get into the beast flies, it's getting a big fly, but you can't make that same fly this way. It would be difficult to cast. This is harder to cast than this. Okay, the amount of bucktail and stuff, the design.
I'm gonna interrupt you, Bob, because I'm gonna answer for you, because it's not what Erik's asking you, because that's what I do, right? but what Erik's asking you, it's true. Like, I've known Bob during the time when he came up with some of these things, and he never did it because, oh, I need to come up with something new, something different. What drove it was not just problem solving, but you got to spend some time with this guy on the beach. And why he's as interested in the bait as he is in the fish that are feeding on the bait. So when I've been on the beach with Bob, we spend as much time, whatever it was, whether it's netting mullet or looking, look, there's a little school of peanut bunker, but there's a hole in it. So there's a fish chasing them from the middle, or whatever it is. It's his obsession with bait. So I think if there's one lesson from this guy, forget this technique or that technique is you start with what you're imitating rather than trying to imitate another fly. In other words, don't change a lefty's deceiver. Look at what a bunker looks like.
Yeah.
Come up with something. Isn't that true, Bob? Isn't that really how you came up with all these things?
Yeah, well, the thing is if you realize that I don't have any imitations of baits that are not in my area. I have imitations of baits that could, because of some of the similarities, may work very well in other parts of the world. However, it's more than just what do they look like. It's where do they live? How do they look and swim? How do they school? How do they escape a predator? Are they fast, slow? Do they swim fast at all, or do they like mullet, for instance? When they evade the predators, their first thing to do is to get out of the water. They fly out of the water huge and mass, to confuse the predators, get it and try to get away. So I'm going to try to imitate a fly, to imitate a mullet that would be more likely to be along the surface, or easy enough for me to keep it on the surface. Doesn't have to be on it, just as long as it's close to it. And because they're all going to be coming from behind and below to get the mullet. They're not chasing them from above down and nail them like they might do to a sand eel. Okay, so observation is really the big number one key. I've tried to make that point in fly design. Observe, look, see everything. Don't you got to keep looking, and then try and see what you come up with. It's observation is probably one thing that we should really bring up more than most things, is the observation, your key sense of observation, so you can pick up on things. 3 dimensions in a fly. Why? The 3-dimensional fly is not one that I tie very often anymore, but it's probably influenced my tying more than anything else, because I see it now in all different ways. I have, let me get these flies I have here. I call them my whites. I take them, I have it in fly design. I take these to the show with me, and I'll just start with, this is a Bucktail Deceiver. All right, the real long bucktail. Okay, but that's all it is. It's just bucktail, and it's done in the Bucktail Deceiver style. But that's not the only way that you can tie it. I can make it the same thing. I just use a little, those who don't have all that long bucktail, all you need is a little monofilament back here. You can make short bucktail into long, depending on how much bucktail or mono you use. But this is squeezed side to side. When I tie it, I'll squeeze it side to side just to flatten it a little bit, more flatter profile, and it'll go up. All right, so that's still the same kind of idea as the Bucktail Deceiver, but on a flatter style, so that you get a more up and down type silhouette. Then another one here I got is what you can see, it's kind of flat on top. I have more on the wings when I would squeeze this one top to bottom. The reason being is I want to get the silhouette. How does it look from below? Let me see here. If you're the fish coming up, you could see it. And what it does at night, I like these because they suspend. These are like wings out here, and they suspend the fly high in the water column longer. All right, so that's it, because fish is not, he's coming from below. He's not seeing what's on top. It's not necessarily really to your advantage, but underneath, this whole profile is what I was able to capture, but just squeezing top to bottom versus 360 or side to side. And then there was one more to be more like a mullet, is this one. It's not necessarily round, it's more triangulated. Round is good, but I can also, by the way I hold it and squeeze it, I can squeeze it. You can see the triangular shape to this, so that when I get my bucktail, few loose wraps, squeeze it, all three's top and the 2 undersides like that, it gets a real, like a triangular shape to it. And that's, it's another thing, it's just,
Hey,
that's
hey,
all
Bob,
coming through observation. Now,
Bob, one thing you should tell him about, one thing that I know is one of the first things that Bob taught me is that he would trace bait fish on a sheet of paper, right?
oh yeah,
Like take a picture. And what is amazing is until you do that, you don't realize how skewed your perception of a bait fish's shape is, right? So I
it's so
remember
true.
this, right? We all know what a peanut bunker looks like, right? A peanut bunker is kind of flat, but it's got a big, deep belly. So I would tie these flies that kind of have flat tops and then big, deep bellies that angled up. And then Bob once showed me a drawing and he said, no, it's kind of symmetrical till about a third or almost halfway back in the body. And for whatever reason, I couldn't see it until he traced it. And I have seen that it's because it's very hard for us to break away from flies that we've seen. So just literally tracing the shape of a bunker on paper will make you, when you put your flies on top of them, they'll look ridiculous. It's an amazing thing. And there's a mental block to it until you see it that way. What fly is that, Bob?
These are the ones you wanted to see. These are the ones from these here guys are the bunker
Spread fly?
spreads. Yep. There's a double spread.
I mean, look at how amazing that shape is, right?
Yeah, it's really pretty.
That's incredible, Bob.
I mean, it's a fly. See, if you don't write an article about it, people really don't know it, and nobody's writing articles. I'm not writing them anymore. And but these flies can go by the wayside. Unfortunately, thank God it's in fly design. But it's a simple way to make a beautiful little fly. You just scissor work. It's all synthetic. It's got a little spread. This has got a little double spread. It's hard to see the.
But you have to explain to everybody what you mean by the spread fly technique, because this is another one of these little light bulb moments.
Yeah, it's one of those where rather than getting a whole bunch of material and trying to build height with more and more material, I would just take some and then just write it just past where the thread actually ties down. You can see on here. Let me get on it related here. Okay, this epoxy is not all the way back here. It's right there after the thread. Then I'll just take it at the right time, and we'll say epoxy. I would squeeze it, and I would flare the sides up so the fibers are more aligned up and on top of one another. So I would get extreme height if I needed it, but I don't need extreme height, but just a little bit of height without any weight. And it was just a beautiful, very, very, very effective. I'm telling you, it was an incredible. The spread flies, these have another way of having, there's one at the bend of the hook and one in the front. The original spread flies only had one in the front. And sometimes I couldn't get the lift in the shoulders enough here. It would take time for it to get back there. But with the double spread, I can get it immediately right above the bend of the hook. And it creates a really nice taper.
And I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a period of time, it was like late 80s, early 90s, where people started to tie a lot of really big bunker flies with different synthetics like super hair, or what was that stuff, Bob? Bozo hair? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
And what they would do is they would layer like tons of this stuff on, right? Because there was no other way you could do it. But Bob just said, you don't need so much. And he squeezed it, went up and down, the glue set, and now all of a sudden you had the height. It was wide enough and the thing could actually sink. Most of those big flies from the early 90s, you couldn't sink them with a 400 grain line. You couldn't get them 12 inches underwater, but these things sink great. And all you did was squeeze them.
You know what was interesting also about this spread fly? Some of them I was making with super hair or ultra hair then. They were thin. Jaworowski would describe it as thin as an envelope. So basically you're not pushing water. Excuse me. You are basically reliant on that side silhouette, and man, that worked. There were a couple days there on that beach where that fly made all the difference, and it was just silhouette only. So there goes your observations. Then you keep looking. Then can we rely on that alone, or would we rather have more bulk? And we know that's what I like to tie now in my beast flies and hollow flies and stuff, bulk up front. because it does really make things move in the back, and movement is critical. But it's not the only way. So that I also know. But the spread fly did that for me.
Predictably, Bob, there are a lot of questions coming in about materials. So I'll start with one that has to do with the spread fly. What synthetic are you using there?
This is, my God, this is, God help me out, Johnny. What do I have on here?
It looks like it's probably Kinky Fibers.
Yeah, I
Farm.
believe
Is it
that's what it
Steve's
is.
blend? Does it have flash in it?
Yeah, it's just kinky fiber. And then this is angel hair I got in here.
Okay.
The flash, yeah. That's beautiful stuff. It's just light and easy to use, easy to tie with.
And easy to trim.
It's specifically a question about bucktail. I think the whole world knows that you're probably the greatest aficionado there is for bucktail. Do you happen to have a couple of examples? Somebody's asking this question, maybe more than a couple, where you can show us what you look for in a bucktail.
All right. Well, they're going to be mad at me when they see these, but this is some, I pull them aside. I figured somebody's going to ask, but no, bucktail is absolutely gorgeous. You can't beat it. The one thing you just remember about bucktail, it has its own taper. All the synthetics that I know are extruded straight. There's no taper to each fiber. Bucktail fibers tapered to the real fine tips. But let me show you some beauties. All right. I know they're going to be mad. So here you go. Now, number one, length. Sometimes length. Look how long this is. These are 8 inches long. These fibers. All right. Nice and soft. It's easy to tie. It compresses well under the thread. That's another important point. Just happen to have a couple more here that you can. This one that never had the bone taken out, hard to handle, but look, I can grab, look at the length on this things like this. It's just absolutely incredible. All right, now let's get something a little bit more regular. Okay, not quite so long. I'm gonna break it down. I got an awful lot of, because that's all I've been tying lately. But the bucktail, what you find is, I find the longest hair is right down here towards the bottom. And if you use it sparingly, you don't use big clumps of it. You don't get it flaring all over the place either. It's a lot easier to handle. The little shorter stuff comes more towards the tip. Okay, every tail is different, so there's really no one way of any one formula. But you have fine fibers, you have thicker fibers, you have fine fibers on the tail the entire length, or you have thicker fibers on the bottom, and as you get towards the tip, they get thinner and softer. But everyone is different. So you'll find, through just enough of experience, you'll find the bucktails that you'll like the most. But you'll find, I never throw anything away as far as these, nobody uses this down here. Well, now we got plenty places where we can use these flaring type and bulk. They create that volume up front, and then all these back here, a little bit thinner, they'll have all the taper. They're the ones that are all going to be moving real nice in the water because of what the work that these guys are doing here. Bucktail, you have, again, fine fibers, you got some thick ones, coarse ones, but length, the length that I use now, these that I showed you, they're real long ones. The thing that's about this is something I don't really use that much. Okay, I like having it because I know people can't get over when they see them. But the tails that I use the most are maybe 4 to 5 inches, 5 inches tops. That's what most of these beast flies are made from. I don't need real long hair for them because I'm on mono anyway. No bucktail is that long. So I'm having all these shorter hairs building up on the mono in order to make the fly as long as it is. But look from the center point up. That's not that long. So this is prime. Okay, but you can get you do just really fine with a lot shorter stuff too. So
Hey, Bob, can you make us feel okay for being mere mortals and tell us how long it takes you to tie a beast fly?
about an hour. When I tie, I don't play. The thing, and that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked, because a lot of times they'll see us at shows and stuff, and we're tying, doing our thing, and we're taking our time. We're also explaining and stuff, taking questions at one at a time, and then you're trying to show, maybe repeat. When I tie real fast. I just throw that fly together. The more precise I try to be, the worse the fly turns out. If I just throw the fly together, work from the seat of my pants, boom, just lay it in there. Yeah, that looks good. Oh, that'll fit here. Yeah, I'll get this much here and I'll tie it. Well, maybe I'll flare it this way or flare. Nah, I don't like that. Unwind it, get another piece. Boom. Before you know it, I go right on down there and it's done. They're not perfect. I'm not worried about that, but it's real good in the water. And that's all I care about. I know they don't cast. It's not fouling. It's durable. I treat everything every step, because you're putting a lot of time in a fly. You don't want it to be falling apart very easy either. So it's important that you put a little bit of durability as best you can into each fly you tie. But there is, as far as handling bucktail, one of the things that I think people would really benefit from, and I had this in the book, but a lot of times people miss it, is what you see. I'm going to turn this way here like that. Like, say somebody comes in here and say, oh, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to make a nice Bucktail Deceiver. Okay, so they grab this, all right, and then they go and they cut it here, and they discard the short hairs. You can't do anything with them. All right. So, I mean, that's how I did it for years and years and years. But then when I get into this, I have some tails of which this is not. I do have maybe one. Well, what happens is you can look at a tail. Okay, but you could look at a tail. Sometimes all these fibers happen to be very long. There's not many short ones in it. There's a series of short hairs. There's maybe this long, and then the length. But if you take this, if I pick, instead of picking at the base, and I pick from the tips, pull the tips back. All right, and you'll be able to see it hopefully here. Well, it's hard to show. But if I pull if I pull these tips back and pull this short hairs out, you'd be surprised that when I get done with some bucktails, it looks like I still have a bucktail, because I got all the long ones out of it. But those medium long hairs that come on these kinds of tails are great for clouser minnows, jiggies, other flies. It's, if you're a commercial guy, that's going to help you a lot. But it's all comes from the beginning. Try starting to separate your fibers differently than what most guys do. And you'll see this comes out. These are all long fibers. I don't have all the short ones are still on the hide. So you got them for another day for sure. So do that. That's the one biggest tip I can give anybody about bucktails. And the other thing would be that when you buy them, take them out of the package and feel them. Okay, that's again, here comes observation again. You're observing them, you're seeing, you're feeling the softness. How thick is it? How many hairs content is there? Some are just very thin with the white. Some have much more. Other points about bucktail, big mistake that I see. If you look at this bucktail, it's brown and white. We only want the white, right? But it just so also illustrates that as you pull the white away and expose only the brown, you start to see that's the shortest white is right adjacent to the brown. Okay, so the bone is in here. This is up. These longest fibers are basically directly opposite the brown. All right, so the point is you don't go and take long fibers like this and try to make short flies. And that happens all the time. Buy short hairs, short fiber tails for your shorter flies, the long ones for this. Save the long ones, don't abuse it, don't discard them. Just hang on to them as best you can. Be very, very, very frugal on how you get. I only need this much at a time. I still got a whole bunch left on there. So again, that works. But again, you lose these fibers here are tapered to the tips. They become more solid up here. And what happens if you start using the tips or the halves of longer fibers to make short flies, the fly doesn't have any body. It lays flat, almost like a synthetic. It'll lay there. Where if you get back a little further, once you put your wraps of thread around the base of that bucktail, you'll see it open, gives you volume. Then you can create different shapes, a more lifelike natural shape. So that's another tip. The preening of it is important. Take them out of the package, see what they are like. You don't like them, send them back. And if you get it in the mail. But the other one is you never use long hairs to make short flies. All right. And every part of this tail is doable. So,
Bob, so many questions flooding in. One quick one about thread. What kind of thread do you like to use, particularly for those beast flies on the mono?
That's all I use is mono thread. That's all I have. I don't have
no gel
any
spun,
thread
none of that.
other than mono thread. Once I started with mono with the surf candy, it was perfect. I like using it, and then boom, that's all I've ever used. Now, I don't have any thread in this building other than monofilament thread. All right.
Okay, that answers that question. What about synthetics? And maybe Jonny, you can jump in here too, because I know Jonny loves his squimpish and has shown us some amazing things with squimpish hair. What's your opinion on a synthetics, Bob? Where do you think, which ones do you like, and where do you find them? In what flies and applications do you find them most useful?
Oh, they now you see, like in the squimpish hairs, the fibers move so well. Most synthetics years ago they didn't move. I know ultra hair certainly didn't move, but I didn't use them for big flies other than a solid silhouette in the spread fly. Other than that, they were surf candies. That's all I would use it. I would never put it on a popper instead of bucktail. But now the synthetics are finer fibers. They're lighter. They're wavy. They're not straight. A lot of them are wavy. Some are wavy in the front. Some are not so wavy as it tapers back. I'm looking. I thought I have. Well, yeah. Look at this. Look at this synthetic. It's hardly anybody uses this anymore. Caribou. See, it has all here, right? And I just put the hollow collars. That's a beast in about 3 minutes. Okay. The only thing is this fullness here, this kink, after you use the fly a lot, it goes away.
Hey, that's the stuff that's also called big fly fiber, right?
Big fly fiber was the original, yeah. Oh, Caribou was the first one. And it's the same thing. Then it went to big fly fiber.
Right, they kinked one end of it so it sort of fluffs out and then it straightens out. Yeah. Right, after you cast it for a while, it doesn't keep its kink.
They get a little elongated, but it's still a great material. So they're doing things with it differently. But I got one for all those guys with the synthetics. Why are you always trying to imitate bucktail? Somebody has to come up with a synthetic streamer hackle. Take Tyvek and cut it in a long, thin triangle or something. You know what I'm saying? Like for streamers, everybody's always doing bucktail as an imitation material. Somebody's got to come up with, give me a feather that I can use on a deceiver. Okay, so I make a streamer.
And there are actually feathers are a lot harder to come by now than bucktail is.
I'm sure. If you can, they should be able to imitate this. At least, let's see, they're the geniuses. So let's see what they come up with, but they have to just shift their focus from fibers of bucktail to, let's see what can be done about feathers. Give me an imitation feather. Who knows? The way I haven't done it in 3 years, haven't tied a fly. Maybe somebody's already come up with it, but.
Eric, I would just add something to what Bob said, which is I think there are lots of synthetics that are good, but they're good not for me when you try to use them to substitute for a feather or for bucktail, because all of those materials have their, polar bear has its unique features, but so does craft fur. So since you mentioned Squimpish is marketed by a friend of mine named David Nelson, who's also a friend of Bob's and also wrote a chapter in Bob's book.
Yes.
Squimpish is so here's a bunker tied to Squimpish hair, but it's sort of hard to tell. But look at how well that moves, right? And what I have learned is, unlike bucktail, you can cut this stuff a ½ inch long and it still wiggles. I'm not sure why, but it's got just the right stiffness to keep its profile. That's the best synthetic I've seen come along in years. But all of these materials have their uses. You just have to use them for the right thing. Like I like kinky fiber for the heads of flies. I don't particularly like it for the tails. Bucktail's better, right? Because it wiggles better, but it's great for when you need bulk. So, for me, it's not, and I learned that from Bob too. Use the material for whatever its benefits are. Don't try to have it substitute for some other thing that it really will never measure up to. Anyway.
No, those are incredibly useful tips from both of you. Bob, are there any rules, let's say simple rules that you've learned along the way, presumably making the odd mistake here and there, that every fly tyer, no matter how advanced he or she may be, should try to keep in mind?
Well, let's see. You got to stay at it. Jonny would probably know the famous Edison was the one that said, what is it? He made 2,000 mistakes, but he didn't consider them mistakes. But in other words, you just got to keep at it, keep trying. You get a little frustrated, try to figure out why, what's bothering you about it. But for tying, I really, you just got to stay at it. Don't be a good observer. Maybe if you're frustrated with different things, see everything in the water, watch your baits. A good design is never finished. And I just was saying this to a friend of mine the other day. It's always evolving. It's never done. A good design or idea is never finished. It keeps, somebody tweaks it a little bit, or you tweak it a little bit more, and it goes on and on and on and on. It has a beginning, sure, but it's still, you can look at the beast flies that you see all over Facebook, and that entertains me damn near every day of my life when I get up in the morning and I can look and somebody's tying, and it's just beautiful to see. It really gives me a lot of enjoyment. They're all tweaking. I always say, I'll build you the Christmas tree, but you decorate it your way. That's the idea.
We got to show them then, Bob, we got to show them the Christmas tree. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so I have the first beast fly here. This is going to be a great illustration of what Bob just said. So check this sucker out, right? Mm-hmm. So I fished this with Bob on the beach in 2007, and he gave it to me in 2008. And we counted once, Bob, but I think there are like 26 collars on this. And there is about, those bucktails that he was holding, there's about that level of bucktail on this thing. And it's also on a 10-aught shark hook. So when I saw this thing in the water, I've never seen anything swim like this. But this fly, compared to the beast that you just held up, has so much more bucktail in it, is on such a bigger, more cumbersome hook, has so much less uniformity to it. So that's a perfect example of here's the prototype, there's a Christmas tree, and that's what it evolved into. Something that, because I couldn't cast this thing, Bob could. He had a 12 weight and he chucked it 70 feet. I could barely lift his rod out of the truck. But those beasts he's got now, and the ones that he's talking about, that all
Like
these
this guy.
yeah, look.
Do you look how thin it is?
And this thing, I guarantee you, has probably 200% of the bucktail and compared to the one that Bob has.
Yeah.
It's like that surf candy. So there's the platform, and there's the evolution of it.
Bob and
Yeah, it always
Jonny,
just stay with it.
I'm mindful of your time. I want you both to know that almost everybody who started with us at 8 o'clock is still with us. And I suspect that they'll stay with us if both of you is willing to go a little bit longer. How do you feel about that?
I love every minute of it.
Okay,
This
so
is
long
the
as,
closest
so long
that
as
I've
there's,
been.
you aren't down to the bottom of the heel of that bottle.
This is the closest I've been to the fly fishing scene in 3 years since, I have a restaurant, and I devoted myself to that to make sure everything was done as best we could. And I just can't go fishing when I'm concerned about things. I fish when I'm happy. I tie when I'm happy. The creative juices get shut off in stress. So that's all I can tell you. So this is giving me a real
absolutely delighted to have you. And that raises a very good point that I wanted everybody to know, which is that this isn't your full-time job. You run a restaurant, right? The Shady Rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've never charged anybody to fish or to fly tie. Is that correct?
No, I never charge anyone to learn how to fly fish, tie a fly, fish a fly, cast the fly.
Well,
I've done it where I've charged the owners of tackle stores or shows, but I've never charged anybody. I've never given anybody a lesson where I received money in return. It's all free.
I'd like to think it's partly because of, largely perhaps because of people like you, Bob, that the fly fishing community is as generous as it is. One needs only go to a show or go to YouTube or go to Instagram to learn an unbelievable amount. And it's a message that I hope gets through to everybody, because it does make it, a wonderful sport to participate.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're in a very sharing sport. When I told you about my buddies that came and picked me up, Butch Colvin and Jimmy McGee, take me over to Capt Collins. I got my lesson. I got my rod and reel. They never charged me a cent ever. And that's just the way it was. No, I didn't know anybody who did. But it was always a sharing thing. Fishing is a sharing thing, that fathers and sons, brothers to brothers, friends to friends, people to strangers. It didn't matter who. You had an interest, all of a sudden you got my ear. And you probably say, well, I wish you'd get the hell out of here already by now. So I'll talk all day long with it. And it was just a very nice thing. I just can't see it, tell you the truth. It would never fit my shoes, that's for sure.
Well, because you won't, I will plug your book, Pop Flies, that anyone who's interested in fly design and fly tying should read. It's out there, easy to get, and obviously will expand for so many people on the ideas that you've shared with us tonight. A lot of people want to know where you like to fish, Bob, and without giving away any secrets.
Oh no, that's another thing I don't hide either. Secrets, I tell anything. I like to surf. The ocean is a block and a half from where I sit now. And the bay is another block the other way. So we're on a spit of land. But I love the surf, the jetties, but mostly the surf in the sand. I like the challenges that it brings, especially to a fly fisherman. That's a rugged little environment it can get to be. And to learn to do it, and I could do it in the most nastiest of situations, pretty much, at certain cycles of it, and found ways where I could fish and catch fish in those situations. 6 hours later, you wouldn't be able to get anywhere near it. But knowing that now the winds are still the same, but the size of the waves and the currents and all that scary part that you're standing in is not yet quite as unruly as it's going to get in another few hours. So early, you pick the times, but the wind is still strong. It's in your face. You learn you can't cast far. There are all kinds of challenges, and to meet them and overcome them and go there and say, boy, look at that, I'm hooked up. And this wind's 35, 40 mile an hour. And it's not at my back. But I was able to find fish in certain spots. I knew I could only cast it maybe 40, 50 feet. But that's where I had to find a spot. You know, that's what the surf does to you. And the surf, Nick Kershon told me, he says, how did he say it about, I said, what is it about fly fishing? It's self-imposed limitations. So well put. He's a professor, a law professor, was retired out in California. And that was well put. Self-imposed limitations. Well, we accept them as fly fishermen, especially in the surf. And it's those self-imposed, those limitations, when you overcome them, are very much rewarding. And that's what I like the most. Now there's no way I can get in there. I could show and talk to somebody and show a little bit of how to do it, but I can't physically get in there and do it anymore. I'll die. I don't swim. I sink. So if I go down, it'll be sayonara. That's when I wave. It's goodbye. So, but knowing my limitations also is important.
You know, we spent a lot of time last week with Tony and Willie from the American Saltwater Guides Association talking about the state of the striper stocks. We didn't get into a discussion about bluefish, and I know you love bluefish. What do you think of the state of the fishery?
Well, I don't know. And the only thing, we went through some tough times way back where there was nothing going on, and there was we had a moratorium and stuff like that. But I was never able. Politics frustrates me, and I lose my temper pretty quick on that. I get frustrated because I get lied to. You know what I mean? This guy says his thing, the other one says another, and you never know where they're coming from. So I get very, I don't like that. And I find people that I trust, and I trust their opinion. I let them weed it all out, and then I get it from them. Like Paul Dixon. I'll ask Paul, what's happened? What do you think? And then I would be quick to support his side. Okay, but from what I've seen, and not just striped bass, fluke or winter or summer flounder, they're all coming around. They're all talking about, you know, a couple of years ago, how many shorts are all catching shorts, they're all shorts, Now they're getting to keep a lot nicer fish more often. That was from the sacrifices of the years before. And let's hope that that's where they're going with the striped bass, you know. So I know a lot of the guys that are involved, and I think they have the industry certainly in heart for sure. So I trust them. I feel secure with them up top, but I'm not one that can get involved in it because I can't get all the information. I can't trust it sometimes, and it just frustrates me. That's where you need those guys that can do it. All right.
Do you have a favorite situation, a place to be, a fish to be targeting at a certain type of year with a certain type of fly, your favorites for all time?
Oh yeah, that would be, and you know, I do a lot of video and I've got a lot of stuff over the years, and I'm always videoing somebody else. I don't have very much video of myself, but my favorite way of fishing is obviously with a fly, sight fishing for striped bass in the surf. And I make a little crab fly that I've been very successful with. The best fish I ever caught in my life was about a 24 and a half pound striped bass sight fishing with in the surf with my crab fly. And I was supposed to be joined that afternoon by a friend of mine. And I'm going there and I'm just targeting, and I just hooked up with this beautiful fish, of which there were 3. One came out, took it, and off to the races we went. And I look up the beach and I could see my buddy, who I thought was my buddy there, the one that I thought it was. It wasn't him. I'm calling him. I say, come on, there's 2 more. I'd say there's more. And he's telling me, just keep going, just do it, what you got to do. Well, it was another friend of mine. And by the time I looked back, here he was behind me, and he's got a camera. He had just gotten a camera. It wasn't the one that was supposed to come down. It was another friend of mine on the beach who just got a camera. So that's the best fish that I ever caught. And that's the way I like to do it the most. And I was just so lucky that my favorite fish, after all those years of not having any video of me catching any fish, he got me with my best of all. So it worked out real nice, but that's how I like it. I like sight fishing. Sight fishing ruined me for anything else.
Jonny, I want to drag you back into the conversation here. Tell us a bit about how you met Bob and what you've learned from him.
How many hours do you have?
I might have to get another. I might have to
exactly.
fill it up.
Yeah, I might go off on it. No, well, so first of all, I started tying flies when I was a little kid, right? And what's really funny is that one of the people who taught Bob is one of the people who through books taught me was Pal Jorgensen. So I learned from Pal Jorgensen's book. So I'm going along for years and years tying trout flies. Lived in Boston. Guy told me to buy an 8-weight and go to this place, and I caught a striper. So I had to learn how to tie saltwater flies. So the first fly I ever tied was a blue over white Lefty's Deceiver, and caught some fish on that. But then I read an article. Was it I don't know if it was the article. Was it 91 was the first Surf Candy article? Is that right, Bob? Like 90, 91?
I actually have the 90.
So
let me look. I got it.
I see this thing, and it's just the strangest thing I've ever seen, right? First of all, the hair is plastic and it's clear and it's see-through, but it looks exactly like a bait fish. So I tied one, and it was actually easy because I had a rotary vise, an old, like one of the first Renzetti Travelers, and the epoxy laid out. And I thought, this is a miracle. Like with glue, I just made the coolest thing. So I worshiped the guy, right? But I never knew him. And I saw him at tying shows, and he was always mobbed. But what happened is, we used to both participate in this fly tying forum called Stripers Online. And he went on in about 2004 and posted a Holofly. So I tied him. No, there were no articles, nothing. So I tied some Holoflies, and I got pretty good at it. And I went up to him at a show. I still have the box of them. I said, "Hey, Mr. Popovics." He said, "Oh, call me Bob." And I showed him my Holofly, and he liked them. And he said, "You've really got it down." So I was like, got the gumption to email him. And then we started this crazy correspondence because I was obsessed with squid. So then he sent me a National Geographic VHS of squid. And I probably have at least like a 400 or 500 page book number of emails of between Bob and me about squid dimensions. So he said, "Come on out and fish with me." So the first time we fished, wait, I have it here. I got to find it. The first time we fished, we caught a couple of fish out behind his, right in his neighborhood. And this was the fly he used. And this is, so nobody had written an article about the Holofly before, right? Eventually Dave Scope did. But this is a polar bear Holofly. And check it out, Bob. It's still got the jungle cock eyes. Right? The hook is a little dull because he caught 3 fish and I caught 1 because, of course, he was casting twice as far as this. And we just hit off. And his influence on me so affects my trout flies. If I tie a mayfly, a stonefly, it's not about how you wrap the thread. It's all about how you look at those things you're imitating and try to free yourself from all of your predispositions of what a fly should look like, and just say, dispense with all of that. Use whatever you know. I've learned a lot of fly tying techniques. I've been doing it for 40 years, but just start with that bait. And that was his fishing influence on me. But more important, he's the one who got me into writing articles and doing demos. And I have done, I think, if not thousands, certainly hundreds of them. And the first thing he told me is, he said, "Don't ever make this about you. This is always about teaching people. It's like him not charging you. It's always about encouraging people to do it. It's never about showing off, oh, look at this complicated fly I tied," because nobody cares about that. It's really easy to sit there for 3 hours and tie a complicated. He said it's about teaching people and befriending people. And that's what he did with me. And there are very few, I met some of my fishing heroes who were sort of distressingly distant, but like Lefty, who I never had a sense that I was being talked down to. Bob was as interested in my flies, or at least he pretended to be, as I was in his flies. And it made all the difference in the world in how I relate to this sport. There's nobody like him. And Lefty did tell me personally, he's the greatest fly tyer of all time, because he said he just does it differently. He just came up with a new way to do it all. And I couldn't agree more.
I should take this opportunity to mention both to you, Jonny, and to Bob, and to everybody else that Jason Taylor, who is a disciple of both of yours, is going to be with us doing fly tying demos on March the 6th. So that's a bit of a plug, I suppose, for Master of the Fly on March 6th, but a worthy plug. And I hope
he's an
everybody's
amazing
going to be able to
fly
join
tyer.
us for that one as well, because you'll learn new things, right? Because Jason has gone and innovated on his own.
Jason's got the touch, man.
Well,
It is absolutely
could
amazing.
Jason ever get more of an endorsement than he just got there, Bob? I'm not sure.
Boy, he's got the touch, and that's,
Absolutely.
I guess, inside it. It kind of explains things. It's got the touch. He sees it. Again, I could see he feels what he's doing. I know he does. We haven't had very many conversations that way. I haven't seen Jason now in 3 years at least. So he's one of the favorite fly tyers I have ever watched. And to see him now, he takes this ostrich and Jesus God, he takes it off the stem, and it just makes the most beautiful, beautiful beast flies you ever saw in your life.
Now, speaking of which, so much of what goes into a good fly, whether particularly a beast fly or a hollow, and certainly Jonny's flies like the Kinky Muddler, isn't just applying the material to the shank. It's what comes after that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, anybody can tie anything to the shank of a hook. It's how you put it together, how you reach to. You're tying with a purpose. There's always a purpose there, and you have to get to that purpose. You have to satisfy that purpose. If you don't, you got to keep looking. You keep looking. There's a reason for anything that's good, and it's just, again, they got the touch. You could see it. It's not. It didn't just. It's they have a talent for it. It's quite involved. It's not a simple one term type of a description. There's a lot that goes to it. The way they see things, the way they feel things. I mean, you got to feel these things. I feel them in my hand, everything. I see them, I watch them in the water. I look at them, I criticize them when I'm tying. Everything is calculated. And I think that's what we like. I think that what keeps us coming back. I might do it a little bit different next time. I don't know. Well, maybe. Oh, I got a good idea. Something like that. It all comes bring.
He still criticized me. If I send Bob, I sent him, it was like about 6 months ago, I sent him, check out this bunker fly. I said, what's that separation between the head and the, like, what the hell is that? He was all over me. I was like, what happened to my friend here? I thought I was past this, but no. But that's what you need, right? And he was right. Once again, I just had to go get a picture of whatever it was, a bunker or something. It's like, he was right. I blew it. So, but it's good for people, that's why it's a collective sport. That's why you try to do this stuff together. You learn this stuff together.
It's a good group of guys for sure. We've been very, very lucky. We got good people who care about other people who teach it very well. I know Gunnar Brammer out in the Midwest. I think he's such a great teacher. And then I'm also very close to Ben Wally up in Maine. And when I hear them speak, I don't have to say anything. They start telling me the things that I'm very glad I'm hearing. And this is what the new fly tyer, the fly fishermen have in store for them. They're going to protect what we love so much. And they're going to carry it on and feel very secure that they're going to do a very, very good job in the future. So that's the way I'm looking at a lot of the stuff here. Jason and yourself, it's like amazing to watch. And I know.
I wanted to ask you about that because your influence. You mentioned Gunnar Brammer, who obviously is an incredible fly tyer as well, and has applied your techniques to freshwater fish. He's primarily started that because he was fishing for pike. Mm-hmm. The other person I had a pleasure of connecting with is Andre van Wyk, who I don't know if you know from South Africa.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he has some of the best hollow tie videos on YouTube.
Oh yeah, we communicate quite a bit.
A totally different direction.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Again, it goes back to that Christmas tree idea. Okay, I'll give you, I was just getting these squared away because these are the first hollow flies that I ever tied. Okay, here's one more, a little bit more open. This was my experimenting, all white, a little bit of flash, a couple eyes in the front, but you can see, I guess you could see, yeah. You see, now I'm thinking about this particular technique on my way home from Boston. Kenny Abrams says he takes a Bucktail Deceiver of mine, and he liked it. I had given to him, and he said, he comes walking to my table and says, you got to take this to another level. And I said, what do you mean, Kenny? I thought he would tell me something. I didn't know what he meant. Take it to another level. So he's very creative. He's artistic, and that's how he knows what he's doing. He's leaving me figure it out on my own. So I said, okay, good. And we're very good friends. I always admired him. And I'm driving from Boston all the way to Jersey Shore, coming home, and I'm thinking about tying. How can I make? I know I'd like to get at 4. It takes me, I got to build all those steps of Bucktail. But if I could take it and make it like these jigs that they're using, not umbrella jigs, but the squid jigs up in Montauk, the skirts, they face forward, and then when they get pulled, they're using conventional tackle, it goes back like a squid. It breathes, and their bait's through here or whatever. I said, how could I do that with Bucktail? Then I could boom, boom, boom. Now I'm working this over in my mind all the way home. It's 6 hours or 4 hours, I forget, whatever it is, from Boston. As soon as I came home, I got my fly tying bag, came up here to this table, and I tied that step. I said, I got to get the Bucktail tied in reverse, but I'm not going to leave the thread back. I'm like, I got to get that thread in front of it, because that's what I'm hoping that I can use to control the flare and get it down. If I get it all the way down, I can get a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And as I go forward, I can create taper. There won't be any there's hardly going to be any fibers on there. That's all I did. Came home, tried it. It worked, and went right to bed. Came up the next morning, and that's the day I made these. But you can see they're more closely, spaced. And then one's a little bit more open. And then you can see in just these 3 here, the changes, but you could see the taper in every one of them. And that was the cool thing. So I digress. I'm sorry. I don't know where I was going with this, but this is
You've still got our attention, Bob. It's okay.
Yeah, geez, I'm losing mine, but that's what happens, I guess. But no, it's just now I see all the guys. That was your Christmas tree, and then you go from there. I'll decorate it differently too. Like Johnny said, with that real big one, big beast. That's the ultimate fly now for me. That's where it ended. But like I said before, the designs never stop. The design is constantly evolving. This now is a fraction of the weight that the green one that Johnny had. And then the second one that I made was blue and white. It was almost as big. It actually might even been a little bit wider than Johnny. But then that was not working out the where I wanted. I said, who's going to be able to cast it? So it evolves. And now this is where, when I teach it, this is what I'm trying to get guys to do. It's that much thinner. So anyway, evolution, it
Bob,
evolves, and it's a Christmas tree. So I like the way he, Andre, what's his first name? I forgot on that one. From South Africa. Andre?
Andre, and I am so embarrassed. It's really hard for me to.
Awesome. Great time.
Names, but he's incredible.
Yes.
Mission Magazine, for any of you who haven't seen it, is really one of the great fly fishing magazines out there. And that South African fishery is just an amazing fishery.
Yeah. That's where Kinky Fiber came from.
Yep.
Right. That's right.
Oh. And I met Paul Van Reenen. Actually, when I met him in Denver at the Fly Tackle Dealer Show, when he first came over, he flew to Jersey, would stay with me at my house here.
And it's
Success flies. It was
all
called,
the
right?
Farrar blend all comes from South Africa too.
Yeah, well, but it
There.
started with Paul Van Reenen, Kinky Fiber, Kinky. Now it's Slinky Fiber. And then Steve would just take and he would deal his stuff out. He'd have it in the package and he'd pull it out and he would lay it real wide. And then he'd get a layer of angel hair or flash and put that in, and then another Kinky Fiber, and then blend it all together. And that was how that all started. And then he got to the company and then they got together and did their thing. So that's how you buy it now. But Steve did it by hand in the beginning. He's a very, very close friend of mine. So we go way back together.
Bob, a couple quick questions before I hand it back to David and Lu Yen. The first is, and they have to do with what you said so early in the conversation about problem solving. Are there problems that you've identified that you haven't been able to solve, either because you haven't come up with the right technique or the right material doesn't exist yet?
No, I feel very secure with my baits that I have here, from crabs to worms, shrimp, sand eels, to bay anchovies, silver sides, herring, round herring, mullet, bunker of all different sizes. All my bait, squids, all the baits that I encounter, pretty much, I've got them where I'm happy with it. If I do anything, I would tweak something. If I see something now that maybe I didn't see 10 years ago, boop, I might do something different. Or if you see a different material, that's not really changing anything. I didn't change it. It's just something else became available. But no, I'm happy with it. I think I'm happy with the beast fly. You got to realize that this is the one that I did for the book. We were not even going to put it in the book, the beast fly, because I didn't think anybody was going to want to spend all the time learning how to tie on mono. I figured they would feel it's way too tedious. And I ain't doing that. That's baloney, But was I ever wrong? But thank God this fly was tied in the hotel room at Somerset the year that the book came out. It was the last fly we did. We had to get a room real quick to get it done. And you can even see, I'll show you, I don't know if it'll come up, but see the blue right here? What I did, I like to mark my mono sometimes when I'm teaching. Mark the mono, and then I could show the spacing. That's where I'm going to make each step. Well, then I marked the mono. That was their pen that they had in the hotel room. But like a knucklehead, I forgot. Usually I will treat the mono first and then mark it. Well, I treated the mono after I marked it, and the blue pen ran. So that's, thank God. Now I know that's the one that was in the book, because I could see all the blue marks in there. So, but I'm happy with that fly. That is, I'll go out with that one. I'm happy. And I know, and I've already seen, which that's why I say it makes me so damn happy. When I get up in the morning, somebody's tying another variation, or they're tying the other, and they tie them so damn good. I mean, they look perfect. That I'm glad I can leave it there feeling real, real good. I got my surf candy. I got my silicones. I got these crazy things that I probably, this was some of my most fun, was the lip. To see these in the water, it's just holy smokes. And what the most excitement, I was probably at the right age, I guess, when I come up with this was 1990. I think that's when it was written about. And I had more fun trying to get this right than any other fly I think I've tied until the Holofly, then its development. But this was a lot of fun, the pop lips. And it still works. They're durable. They last forever. As long as you don't crease them and put something on the lip and misshapen it. But no, I love that fly, and it's very, very effective. So I don't know. I'm happy with everything I got.
Well, we are happy that you're happy because we've learned so much. And Bob, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have this chance to talk to you. It's been great fun. I think everyone who's participated tonight has gotten as much, if not more, out of this conversation than I have.
Well, I
And
sure
with
hope
that,
so.
I want to hand it back to Lu Yen and to David.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Wow, Bob, that was amazing.
Oh, and lest I forget, Jonny, thank you.
Yeah, Jonny, thank you so much. Bob, thank
My
you so
pleasure.
much. Tom and Clay, thank you for your help tonight. Wow, without you, we technically could not have gotten through any of this. Bob, I'm like blown away, the continuous evolution of a fly. I mean, you know, I'm always tweaking, and when I'm teaching, I'm always telling people not to stop and just to keep going. But I think something that we all take for granted is really how to handle a bucktail, and you really illustrated it beautifully tonight. And I want to thank you for that, because you know, us as humans can be so wasteful, and that's just another way of not going through stuff so quickly. So thank you for that. I just want to do a little promotion for us here. Each week, I show these little bumper stickers, guys. Don't forget, if you write us, we'll send them to you, and you might even find a fly in one of the packages you get. Keep coming to the events. Jason Taylor is going to be a lot of fun. But before Jason, we've got Chris Wood of Trout Unlimited. And that's going to be a wonderful event. And to you, maybe offering us something really kindly to the guests who tune into that. But we'll have more on that in letters that go out to you guys who are signing up for Trout Unlimited. Lou.
Yeah, no, listen, this has been an incredible evening, just super memorable, and thank you both, Bob and Jonny, so much for the generosity of your time. I mean, I'm looking at the chat, and people are just overflowing with well-wishes, just love for both of you and for the session. So, we're just so honored to be able to have you both here tonight, and it's so great to know that in Jonny we have and others. You mentioned Gunnar and Andre and so on, and Jason, obviously, that your innovations, Bob, are evolving, and that there's a new generation of tires who are taking it forward and will innovate it and take it to another level, and that hopefully there's a generation that comes behind them that even takes it to another level. So I think this was an important evening for us to be able to record this for posterity, and we really, really thank you for doing this, and we thank everyone for participating. It's been an incredible night. And then finally, huge thank you to Erik for facilitating the conversation. Great job. It's been just such a joy to listen in on this. It's been an honor for us to be part of this. Thank you all.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I love the opportunity to be with everybody and talk about fly fishing. And I don't want to leave without saying to all those that are out there and all those that are at the shows that I would normally see and stuff, I miss them deeply. When this whole damn thing gets done, I'll get back there. I promise, I hope. And tell them I think about them. And everybody stay safe.
We will.
Thank you.
Be careful for what you wish for. We're all descending on your restaurant as soon as COVID opens up, and we're going to meet you there.
Bob, just reservation for 3, May 2nd. Me, Lou, and Erik are going to be there. Okay, so just put it down.
All right, hey, listen, I'll tell you what. If we can make it towards the end,
Get the calamari and the Fried Diavolo.
Now, hold on a minute, Jonny. There's one other thing. If you can make it towards the end of May, the roses may be in bloom. You got to see that.
Say something about the roses. We will try to do that. Well, maybe for me it may be a little earlier because I have a few commitments on the bow of the skiff. But yeah,
we are there.
It'll be pretty then.
Last question. I saw one question from someone who said, "What's your favorite dish at your restaurant?"
Yeah.
Oh God, Fra Diavolo pizza is the best pizza that I've ever had. All right, and then you got the ribs are out of this world. Mine's chicken franchise.
Hmm.
Okay, and the other one is the rigatoni vodka sauce.
All right. That's
Oh, it goes on and on. But if you
one
like pizza,
for each of us, and we're sharing. No, there's no.
all right,
Yeah. One last question. If you were invited to a one fly, what would you take?
Semper Fly,
Okay.
and we didn't even talk about that one.
Good.
All right, that
Next
is. I'm telling you, someone else had just
I
asked that.
can't believe you
The
didn't say a
Semper Fi.
Bucktail Deceiver. I'm done with you, Popovics. We're done. That's it. Have a nice rest of your career. He doesn't.
Mickey Muddler.
Mickey Muddler, right, Johnny?
He didn't say Bucktail Deceiver. He doesn't even know his own flies. You know, like who's gonna listen to this guy?
You got to see. No one ever wrote about the
Semper?
Semper Fly, man, and I'll tell you that is like in all the sizes. If I can do anything, that would be the first one I would tie anywhere, any size, different
That's a great
colors.
one.
I can blend colors. I love it. Semper
Wow.
Fly.
That's great. Well, again, on behalf of Masters of the Fly, thank you all so very much. And all of you guys out there, we look forward to seeing you on what's our next date?
Next date is February 27th.
February 27th. I have it right here. I don't know why I can't remember it. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and thank you, Bob and Johnny.
Thanks, guys.
Got it, man. Thank you.
A
Eric.
lot of fun.
Good night, Johnny.
Bye.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everybody.
Bob. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.